What's up, moviegoers? Welcome to the Markio Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony. In this episode of the Markio Podcast, I'm talking about Leprechaun Origins. Now, this seventh movie in the franchise is a reboot of the Leprechaun movies and is produced by WWE Studios. Yes, that WWE, the wrestling company. The movie stars Dylan Postl, who is known as Hornswoggle in the WWE at the time of this release. The movie came out in 2014 and is 90 minutes long. Now, the interesting part about this movie is that Warwick Davis does not reprise his role as the Leprechaun at all. And this movie is described as much more of a darker look and more traditional horror movie than the Warwick Davis movies, and it's actually categorized as a horror movie. Here's the thing. The Leprechaun looks more so of a monstrous creature, so to speak, and which is really good. The makeup effect is great. It's interesting, but calling this movie Leprechaun Origins was just a little, weak to me. It just didn't do it at all. Basically, more so, this leprechaun lives in a cave and protects his gold, and, in order for someone to use his gold or something, from what I believe, I've only seen this movie once, and sacrifices must happen and everything. And like I said, this movie is a horror movie, and nothing's comedic about it at all. It's definitely dark. You can see the dark anecdotes, the dark factors into it, even the dark atmosphere that's in it. And, there are times where we see the leprechaun in a way, but then we don't. The interesting weird thing about this is that the leprechaun has like a weird elongated jawline. It looks like a vampire with its nose. Its ears are definitely pointy, and the teeth are the creepiest part about it. And, you don't really see the leprechaun. Like I said, he's very, when he comes into the light, it's like a quick shot of what it is, and then all of a sudden he goes back into the darkness. And seeing the certain way this movie was done with the illumination of the character, keeping it a secret, not showing it in full bright light, was actually interesting and really funny. And like Hornswoggle, the WWE wrestler who plays this role, he was in full makeup and full gear, so you really don't get to see him at all, with his face and everything. And this movie just feels like it's out of place in this, Leprechaun Origins movie. I do commend WWE for trying to make a horror film, but it just didn't work at all. And then when you hear that this movie stars a WWE wrestler, you think to yourself, okay, how bad can this get? But the good thing is that you don't really see the character or the actor that plays, Hornswoggle in this role at all. He's full in makeup, he's full everything, and it works in a way, but it doesn't work, if that makes sense. Now, the movie was released in select theaters in August of 2014, which was followed by 2 days later by a video-on-demand release, and then a month later in September of 2014, it was a DVD and Blu-ray release. So this movie had 3 times, the release than any previous Leprechaun movies. And it definitely probably did worse than Leprechaun 3 did back in 1995. Because, come on, when you read that 1995, the best direct-to-video movie that sold the most was Leprechaun 3, that's saying something. The film definitely had negative reviews. People called it more of a slasher movie than it is. It reminded you of the creatures from The Descent. If you've seen the horror movie The Descent, you know the creatures that I'm talking about. And if you watch that and you see this leprechaun and the design, you definitely see the similarities with it. Which is why I say that this movie is not that good. You could have just called it Leprechaun Descent or something like that, and it would have been fine. But it is the 7th movie in the film franchise. But technically, it's a reboot of that. So it's kind of hard to say, what's here, what's there. I did like how the main characters in the movie were much more better at acting. They did stand up to par with the Leprechaun character in this movie. And like I said, I commend WWE for making a horror movie. But if you're going to try to make a horror movie, pick a different horror movie or come up with something that's original, like See No Evil, which was great. And other than that, this movie is not that interesting, not that funny. And for me being a horror fan, I really despised this movie because it didn't have a horror feel to it at all. Because I'm so used to seeing the Warwick Davis movies that I got so used to those because he was in 6 of them. And they made 6 movies, then you don't see Warwick Davis in a 7th movie where he could have got a better outing and, a better send-off. I felt no remorse for this movie at all. It was bad. It was not fun to watch. I can't remember if I did fall asleep on it when I did see it on Sci-Fi Channel, which I did watch it on the Sci-Fi Channel. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought about Leprechaun Origins and if you checked it out and if you will be checking it out now that I've talked about it. And also, what do you think about WWE Studios trying their hand at a horror movie and putting one of their comedic wrestlers in the title role, even though we don't get to see him since he's all in makeup and special effects? I'm curious to hear your answers in the comment section below. And be sure you tune into the next episode of the Markio Podcast where I talk about Leprechaun Returns. And be sure you click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell for new videos and new podcast episodes on the Markio Productions YouTube page. And follow Markio Productions on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And follow me, Anthony, your host, on Instagram and Twitter at Mr. Filmstock. And follow the Markio Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'll leave a link to all the social media accounts in the description box below. You can check it out and follow along. Alright everyone, that does it for today's episode. I'm your host, Anthony. Thanks for tuning in.
Fuck you, Lucky Charms!